Hello guys, I'm Tom, and today we're going to explore what the carnivorous pods are. The so-called predatory or carnivorous pods stand as the central antagonists of the ruins, both in Scott Smith's novel of the same name and in its film adaptation. These enigmatic and deadly carnivorous plants are not only a physical threat, but they also embody an ancient mystery that traces back to the darkest secrets of the jungle and Mayan culture. They are believed to inhabit southern Mexico, deep within the jungle, but their existence remains confined to an ancient Mayan temple, whose moss-covered stones and narrow corridors act as natural barriers that limit their spread and keep their lethality concentrated in a closed, almost impenetrable space. Although some local inhabitants carefully monitor the area, any intruder daring to enter the temple, whether human or animal, faces a mortal risk. These plants do not act solely on instinct, but appear to possess a primitive, almost ritualistic intelligence that makes them perfect predators. Their fleshy, flexible leaves, covered with roots and stems that intertwine like snakes, can immobilize, trap, and ultimately consume their prey, turning curiosity into a death sentence. Before delving deeply into their characteristics, lethal powers, and methods of propagation, it is necessary to go back to the beginning of the tragedy, both in the book and in the film. It all starts with Heinrich, a German archaeologist, and his companion, who discover the ruins of an ancient Mayan temple. Their find promises to revolutionize archaeology, but it is soon cut short. Both disappear without a trace, enveloped in an absolute silence that suggests the worst. The only ones aware of the discovery are Matthias, Heinrich's brother, and Dmitri, his close friend and confidant. Faced with a lack of news and the indifference of the local authorities, they decide to organize their own expedition, ignoring the danger lurking in every corner of the temple. During preparations for the expedition, Matthias encounters a group of American tourists, Jamie and Eric, along with Stacy and Amy. Drawn by adventure and curiosity, they hear Matthias' story and, unaware of the magnitude of the danger, agree to accompany him. Their arrival at the temple marks the beginning of a nightmare. The ruins are surrounded by strange plants with bright red flowers that seem to watch them intentionally. The first warning comes when a misstep awakens the hostility of these pods and apparently the temple's Mayan guardians silent, threatening figures patrolling the ruins and allowing no intruder to leave unscathed. The conflict escalates quickly. Matthias tries to explain himself in Spanish and English, but communication fails. The tourists do not grasp the gravity of the situation. Accidental contact with the plants, even a slight brush against the stems, provokes violent, synchronized reactions, while Dmitri tries to intervene. Every second counts. The pods seem to sense fear and uncertainty, extending their vines like arms that trap everything they touch. As the threat grows, the group is forced to climb to the top of the temple, seeking refuge among the ancient stones. There, they find an abandoned camp with a deep hole in the center, suggesting an alternative entrance, perhaps leading to the temple's more hidden levels. The lack of phone signal, due to the remote location, heightens the sense of isolation. They are completely alone, at the mercy of forces they do not fully understand. Tension reaches its peak when an unexpected sound breaks the oppressive silence. A cell phone falls from the bottom of the hole. Matthias suspects it could be Heinrich's satellite phone, his only connection to the outside world and the hope of obtaining help. The decision to descend becomes critical, but the rope found in the camp cannot support his weight and snaps, causing Matthias to fall violently, leaving him injured and partially paralyzed. The group struggles to survive while attempting to negotiate with the Mayan guardians, carefully descending the temple stairs. Every step is a risk. Contact with the plants can be fatal, and the guardians react with relentless aggression. Amid the chaos, a moment of desperation leads Amy to throw a bundle of pods at a child, triggering absolute mayhem. The Guardians respond with horror and violence. The child is attacked, and the tension enveloping the group becomes nearly unbearable. Every movement, every decision, turns into an act of life or death within that ancient temple, where the jungle and the pods seem to act as a single entity, relentless and intelligent in their brutality. At that moment, the young people realize something that makes their blood run cold. The Mayans patrolling the temple are not merely seeking to attack them for fun or out of hostility. Their objective is to protect the mysterious pods that dwell deep within the sanctuary. These plants, with their fleshy stems and red, pulsating-looking flowers, are not mere decorative elements. They are living creatures, instinctively intelligent and highly territorial. By touching them, the group has become a target. The Guardians show no mercy. Every glance, every gesture, makes it clear that no one will be spared while the pods are in danger. Soon, Eric decides to descend into the dark hole, determined to help Matthias and locate the satellite phone that could save them. Darkness is nearly complete. Only a flashlight illuminates the walls covered in roots and damp moss. To transport the injured Matthias, they improvise a stretcher using planks and ropes, fearing every movement. Eric explores every corner of the abyss, holes, cracks, and recesses where the air smells of soil and decay. Yet he cannot find the phone and ends up with deep cuts on his legs, wounds that burn on contact with the moisture and vegetation, which seem to react to human pain. As night falls, the group is forced to rest, aware that they must leave the temple before Matthias' injuries become irreversible. However, the silence is tense and heavy. Every creak of wood or whisper of wind makes their hearts pound. The next morning, Matthias discovers in horror that a pod has burrowed into his leg, moving slowly beneath the flesh. With Eric's help, he manages to extract it, but the damage is already devastating. Several plants had consumed parts of his legs, leaving bones partially exposed, flesh torn, and skin blackened. Overwhelmed and terrified, they decide to wait, fearing that any hasty movement could accelerate the infection. The sound of a phone, a distant metallic beep, is heard again. Eric and Amy return to the hole, hoping to find the lost communication. What they find is chilling. The lifeless body of Heinrich's colleague, her empty eyes staring into the abyss, and the satellite phone shattered, completely useless. They soon discover that the strange sounds that had guided them there originated from the plants themselves, whose flowers vibrated with a disturbing rhythm, almost like a malevolent heartbeat. When they accidentally touch them, the pods react with instant aggression. They coil, bite, and crush, attacking Amy and Stacy, who barely manage to escape being devoured. Adrenaline and terror mix as Eric and Amy drag them to safety by mere inches. The terrible truth becomes undeniable. The pods are carnivorous, infectious, and spread within the bodies of those who come into contact with them. Desperate, the young people make the most brutal decision: amputate Matthias' legs to stop the infection. The procedure is painful and bloody. Although he was already partially paralyzed, the loss and agony worsen his condition, provoking deep despair among his friends. Every cut, every scream, feels like an echo of helplessness against the damp temple walls. During the afternoon, while Matthias tries to sleep, he believes he hears moans coming from Eric, which irritates him and leads to a confrontation. Amy, with a trembling voice, explains that the plants emit sounds calculated to confuse and divide the group, a psychological weapon, keeping them alert yet disoriented. While they argue, the pods, silent and stealthy, approach Matthias. Before they can react, the pods enter his mouth, blocking his breathing. Eric acts in time, ripping them out with force. But the damage is done. The brief exposure is enough for Matthias to succumb, leaving a deadly silence after his fall. The next day, Stacy feels weak and feverish, an ill omen that Eric confirms with horror. Examining her back with a flashlight, he discovers several pods moving beneath her skin, undulating like living snakes. With extreme care, he manages to sterilize one of her legs and remove another pod, as well as a large one from her back. However, it is evident that many more remain hidden, spreading uncontrollably. Desperate, Stacy attempts to remove them herself with a knife, but her friends manage to calm her, using alcohol and improvised bandages to relieve pain and anxiety, while fear grows with each passing minute. Finally, a disturbing movement under Stacy's skin reveals the worst news. The infection has reached her skull, spreading toward her head. Amy's and Eric's eyes reflect absolute terror. The reality is horrifying. There is no easy escape, no simple cure, and the jungle, the temple, and the pods now seem like an enemy impossible to defeat, stalking every breath and heartbeat of the survivors. The horror becomes tangible, physical, and the sense of hopelessness completely engulfs them. The next morning, Stacy wakes up before everyone else. The jungle light filters through the holes in the temple's roof, but no beauty can mitigate the horror she faces. With a knife in hand, she tries to remove the pods that have embedded themselves in her body, moving slowly beneath her skin like living snakes. Her piercing screams echo off the stone walls, alerting Amy, who runs in a panic to see what is happening. Upon arriving, Amy finds a scene of absolute despair. Stacy is bleeding heavily, her muscles tense, eyes filled with panic, struggling against unimaginable pain. Eric and Amy attempt to calm her, speaking to her and touching her gently, but Stacy's reaction is instant and violent. She strikes, scratches, and further injures herself, plunging the group into absolute chaos, where every second is a fight for survival. Eric, a mix of fear and determination, approaches cautiously to calm her, placing his hand on her wound-covered back. Stacy, gripped by terror and paranoia, accidentally strikes him in the chest. The blow proves fatal. Eric falls, and the pods take over his body, spreading across his skin and consuming him with macabre speed. In a desperate act, Stacy begs Amy to free her from the torment she is experiencing, pleading for her to end her suffering before the plants consume her completely. Meanwhile, Amy, terrified but determined, attempts to organize an escape plan. Covered in blood and desperation, she shields herself with Stacy's body to confuse the pods and the Mayan guardians and begins to carefully carry her down the temple stairs. Eric, before dying, distracts the guardians with screams, cries, and movements that draw their attention. Arrows fly, but this maneuver gives Amy the opportunity to stand and run toward the exit. Some guardians pursue her, and the chief fires a deadly arrow that pierces Eric's head, ending his life brutally. Amy, a mixture of fear, pain, and determination, manages to reach her boat, setting fire to the camps and ruins as she departs, leaving the temple ablaze behind her. Later, Dimitri's friends travel through the jungle and finally find the temple while searching for their missing companion, only to face a place shrouded in mystery and death, where the shadows of the pods still seem to move among the stones and vegetation. This is the ending that appeared in theaters, but the director's cut adds even more disturbing scenes. During the escape, Amy discovers that she has been infected by the pods. Her eyes bleed, she feels movements under her skin, and a deep terror engulfs her. In the extended version, a cemetery is shown where she is presumed buried, surrounded by red flowers and pods growing uncontrollably. A caretaker walking nearby hears a strange sound as he approaches Amy's grave. When he touches one of the flowers, the screen cuts to black, hinting that the plants have managed to leave the temple, carrying their threat into civilization. Director Carter Smith explained that he chose a hopeful ending, in which Amy survives, because test audiences reacted negatively to the original ending. According to him, a ray of hope works better in an intense and dark film, while Scott Smith's novel ends tragically, with everyone dying, a conclusion that would have depressed audiences too much. Therefore, the fatal ending was left only in the director's version. Smith also noted that, despite the fantastical concept, he wanted the plants to feel realistic and tangible. Inspired by real plant species, he designed the pods to appear harmless at first, but lethal when the protagonists discover their true power. Every detail was considered, from the texture of the leaves to the way they move and react to human contact. Regarding their characteristics, these carnivorous pods are the supreme predators of the region, instilling terror among the locals. They seem to possess a certain intelligence and awareness, acting strategically to kill. They can strangle, trap, or even lure victims using familiar sounds, such as Heinrich's satellite phone. Their red flowers not only attract attention, but can also reproduce any sound, even if they have not heard it before, making them extremely deceptive predators. Unlike common internal parasites, they are transmitted via spores, and direct contact is extremely dangerous. Once inside the victim, they affect the mind, causing hallucinations and self-destructive behaviors, driving the protagonists to desperately try to remove the pods. They do not require sunlight to survive. They can grow in the darkness of the temple, within infected bodies, and attack in groups, seeking to enter through the mouth to ensure total infection. Cutting or amputating limbs only temporarily delays the infection. The pods continue spreading and feeding on the host. Even minimal contact can be deadly, as shown by the Mayans' reaction to the child. Their exact origin remains unknown, although it is suggested that the Mayans had known about them since ancient times and kept them contained within the temple, using rituals and strict vigilance. Among fans, a theory circulates that these plants emerged as a result of ancient Mayan sacrificial rituals, evolving over time into carnivorous and deadly species, ready to attack anyone who dares disturb their territory. Their combination of instinctive intelligence, stealth, and violence makes them unique, terrifying, and nearly indestructible creatures, perpetuating the legend of the temple and the fearsome pods that inhabit it.